Great, so now we've got our enemies added to our scene, and they're tagged, and our nav mesh is ready to go. So now we need to create our NPC script. And this is another section where if you are in our time traveler project, then we are going to make this really easy for you and allow you to just pull not only your NPC code, but also your NPC health and your NPC canvas over from time traveler. So go ahead and skip to this time in the video. There should be a time on screen there. And at that point, I'll show you how to grab all of those and import them into our new Pirates game. If you were not in the Time Traveler project, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this stuff manually over the next couple steps. So what we need to do is click on both our TA dungeon and our dungeon skeleton and our TA skeleton in the project pane. We're selecting their prefabs, not their instances in the scene, but their prefabs. And we want to click Add Component. And we're going to type NPC, all caps. And it's gonna bring up this new script button here. We're going to click on that and then click Create and Add. And that's going to go ahead and create the NPC script for us and attach it to our prefabs, which will then update our guys that are in the scene. So we'll give it a second to think here. You'll see that pop up. And now if we select our NPCs that we added, they're all hanging out correctly in the scene. What we then want to do is go back to our assets folder and move that NPC script into resources. Normally we just create the script directly in the resources folder, but because we want to put that on a couple or multiple objects, it's easier to do it with that add component button and then to move the script afterward. Once we get the script moved into resources, we can go ahead and open that up. And we're going to start by just writing out our variables. So what we need to do is say private nav mesh agent, and that's going to be a reference towards our nav mesh agent. And you'll see that it's underlined in red here, and if you have IntelliSense on in your editor, then you'll also see the red line. That's because we need to add a using Unity engine.ai line to the top of our code here. That's going to give us access to that nav mesh agent class. We also need to say private animator anim, which just like on our player, that's going to give us access to our animation data. We're going to say public transform my destination, and that's going to be our NPC's target destination for where it's going to want to walk to. We'll say private bool attack. That's going to be whether or not it's attacking. Public integer damage is just exactly what you think. That's going to be the amount of damage our enemy deals. Public float attack delay is going to represent how much time in seconds will be between each attack. So 1 second seems to be a pretty good time for us. And then we're going to say public bool can attack equals true. And that's going to be a little bit more relevant later. We'll explain that as we go along. So if you are not done, or if you did not do time traveler, then you're done with this step. You can then go ahead and do check setup and move on to the next step. Of course, make sure you save your script before you do all that. Now, if you are in Time Traveler project, this is where I'm going to show you how to export that stuff from your Time Traveler project and make the necessary tweaks to get rolling here in Pirates. So we're going to open up our Time Traveler project. There we go, Time Traveler. And mine's going to take a second to load here. And what we're going to be grabbing is, like I said, basically our entire NPC prefabs for the the skeleton and the dungeon skeleton. And then we just have to make a couple of slight tweaks to the code to get that to work properly. So what we're going to do is, give it a second here, is we're going to go into our assets folder. We're going to open Techability and go to NPCs. And we're going to check our NPC prefabs. And most likely, yours look like my spider does, where it doesn't have all of our stuff on it. So assuming that you finished the project, what you need to do is go to the TA Dungeon Skeleton and go to this panel up here that says Overrides and hit Apply All. Same thing with the TA Skeleton. You're going to go up and hit Overrides and hit Apply All. That's going to make it so our prefab object here has all of the stuff that we did throughout the project attached to it. Next, what we're going to do is select both the TA skeleton and the dungeon skeleton by clicking one and then holding Control and clicking the other. It's going to allow us to select both. And we're going to right-click either of them and hit Export Package. Now, this time it's a little bit tricky. We want to grab almost all of this stuff, but not quite everything. So what we can do is, we know that we don't need, well, I guess we'll keep the system asset stuff for now. So just collapse that folder. If we don't need it we don't want it when we import it, we can decide not to import it, but we can still put it in the package. So we'll just collapse that one, but leave it checked. We don't want any of this Y Techability stuff, so uncheck that whole folder. And then we need to look in at the scripts that it wants us to bring. So what we need is NPC and NPC health. We don't need anything else. So we're going to uncheck sword, spawner, player health, player, and destination. So we're going to just get NPC and NPC health. And then we want to make sure we leave our animators and our prefabs there as they are. And we're going to hit export. And just like we did with the second week's player package, we're going to do that again here, except we're going to call it skeleton package. And again, you can save this anywhere. I just prefer to save it in my assets folder for my new project because it makes it a little easier to find. I'm going to hit save. And then once it's finished, it should open up the folder you save that in. Once it's finished and it pulls up the folder, close your time traveler project. We want to make sure we don't leave that open, and you'll hit save when it prompts you there. And what we can do now is open the player pack, or I'm sorry, not the player package, the skeleton package. And you'll see we have all this stuff here. If this isn't checked, like you remember we checked this earlier, but now it's not, that means that the prefabs have correctly grabbed the data from our already existing skeletons. As in, we already have all of this stuff in the project, so it doesn't need to be imported. All we need is this resources folder, and our NPCs prefabs here. So we're going to go ahead and just hit import. And we're going to give that a second. Oh, I think I have another instance of Unity open, so I think that actually imported into the other one. So I'm going to do that again. Import package, custom package, skeleton package. Here we go. Yep, okay, that makes more sense. So just like I had to do previously, I'm just going to delete my NPC folder here, and that'll get rid of my error. Of course, if you're doing this, you won't have that. But just like I said, we don't need to check anything. We'll hit import, and there we go. Now I've got both. So now, like I said, we need to make a couple of quick additions and quick changes to our enemies before we move on. The first thing you want to do is go into your NPCs folder and make sure you still only have the two prefabs. It's going to say prefab has missing scripts. If you open it, you'll see that that's the reference to our NPC health and NPC scripts. And that actually should get fixed when we make the changes we need to the NPC health and NPC scripts accordingly. So first, let's open up NPC. And what we're going to do is... okay, so we need to get rid of a couple things here that are not going to be relevant to our NPC in Pirates. So what we're going to do is, to start, get rid of our destinations dest. We don't need that. We're also going to get rid of the array of destinations because we only have the one. We're also going to get rid of number of destinations as well as current destination. Because all we need to know is that we have my destination here. And we're not going to be doing this my health stuff or the will flee. So this should be all we need as far as variables go. And obviously that's going to give us a bunch of errors because we're getting rid of a whole lot of variables that are in use, and that's okay. We're actually going to go through and delete that chunk out of start. We're going to delete this chunk out of our conditional here. We're also just going to delete this whole else statement because we don't need any of that anymore. We want to keep our attack delay, and we want to keep our on trigger enters. So as long as we have all of this, our NPC script will be good to go. Next up, what we need to change is our NPC health script. So we're going to go back to our project. We're going to find NPC health. We're going to open that up, and we're going to take a look here. So we've got some of the bonus code that we had. We actually don't need any of this anymore. So what we can just do is delete this whole respawn coroutine here. And we can delete this lives variable. And then we can also delete all of this stuff inside here except for the destroy game object line. So now all we've got is these get component sliders and update the sliders and all that stuff. So that's good. We're actually going to also grab this get component and children. We're going to copy that and paste it up into start. That's just to make sure that our text is updated properly with our health if we happen to change the max health of our enemies. Once we do all that, we should find that the errors are gone. And if I check my console, yep, I've only got this one, which we can just clear out, and we should be good to go. And one thing we'll want to check, let's see, does it include, yes, that also includes all of your canvas information. So if you've got all of that, then you are good to go. You don't have to worry about the next few steps. When you hit check setup, it should show you which ones that you've completed by doing that, and then you can go ahead and pick up on the next step where it tells you things are not complete.